Well, welcome to our session today on promoting online collaboration with Wimba Classroom in Blackboard. I'm Jason Rohde. I'm the Assistant Director of the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center here at Northern Illinois University. And it's my pleasure to be with you today as we take a look at Wimba Classroom. This is a session that we offer in a face-to-face format here on campus. And it's typically about a 3-hour session. And we thought we'd try doing a condensed online version and kind of talk about some of the same topics and then make that information available in an archive. So that's what's led us to our session here today. And as we get started, I want to very quickly kind of highlight once again Wimba Classroom in a nutshell and just give a very brief overview and highlight again the interface, especially for those that perhaps have not used Wimba Classroom before. Maybe they're brand new. Just want to very quickly highlight those items once again. And I want to talk a little bit about some collaborative learning ideas, some possible activities, ways in which faculty are using Wimba Classroom to enrich the learning experience for their students. And then from there, actually go into Blackboard and show you within Blackboard how you go about setting up an online office using Wimba Classroom within Blackboard. And then finally, any Q&A. Now, there are lots of faculty can use Wimba Classroom, and today we're going to focus primarily on the use of an online office for online office hours. That's a very common entry-level type of activity, but certainly as we go along, if you have other questions or other ways in which you're thinking about using synchronous online collaboration technology like Wimba Classroom, we certainly can talk about that as we go through the session. So first of all, what I want to do is get a sense, a little activity here. I'm going to enable the whiteboard, and if you could just indicate where you're connecting from, just click on the little arrow tool that you see in the upper left-hand corner, and then click on the map to show where you're connecting from today. We do these online sessions that we offer, we do make available from anyone to participate. So we do publicize not only through NIU, but also other online venues, and certainly encourage other people from around the country and around the world actually to participate. So today it looks like we're located primarily in Illinois, but that's not always the case, and so thank you everyone for joining us live today. So Wimba Live Class, which has been abbreviated, often referred to just as Wimba Classroom, it's really a way for you as a faculty to provide opportunities for live collaboration with and among learners. And using the Blackboard Learning Management System as a way to either enhance a face-to-face class, or perhaps some faculty are using it in kind of a way in which to have a blend or even fully online courses. The Blackboard tool, again, it's a shell basically where you can develop and teach using the online technology. One of the drawbacks with Blackboard is that it does not have a good subset of tools when it comes to synchronous types of collaborations. And by synchronous, real time, where we are discussing or chatting. Blackboard does have some built-in tools, but they're rather limited. And so what Wimba Classroom is it's a plugin that NIU has licensed. It's a building block that extends the functionality of Blackboard to allow for this type of rich, engaging online interaction like we're having here today with our online workshop. The way in which we're using Wimba Classroom for this particular session here is in a standalone form where you've accessed it outside of Blackboard. You don't have to log in to be able to get to this room, but Wimba Classroom is also fully integrated with Blackboard. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how can you teach with Wimba Classroom? How can you fully and very easily integrate it into your teaching? So that's what we'll take a look at here as we move forward today. So let me just talk very briefly about some of the features. Very simply, I think what you're seeing right now, the ability to give voice presentations with PowerPoint. So at its simplest core, some faculty are looking for ways to give virtual lectures, so to speak, where the students could hear them and can see slides and information. The ability Wimba Classroom does have the ability for text chatting, and in the lower left-hand side of the window, you see a text chat area, and you can type in that box, and you can broadcast a message either to the entire room or directly to a particular user within the room. The ability to have an e-board, which is what you're seeing right now, with a synchronous virtual whiteboard. So I could actually draw on the screen right now using the drawing tools, and at the moment I'm the only one that has those enabled. You can very easily enable those tools for all of you, and then you could access and actually annotate on this whiteboard in real time. One of the advanced features is the ability to do desktop and application sharing, and that's actually what I'm going to be doing in a little bit when I go into Blackboard and demonstrate how to set up a Wimba room. I'm going to be doing what we would call desktop or application sharing, where you're going to actually see my browser on my desktop, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. Very powerful tools when you're demonstrating different software, or you want to give a presentation where you want to retain control of the content. Using application sharing is great because I can share an application on my system or as part of my desktop with my students. Web sharing is referring to the ability for you to share a link to a website with your students. The difference between a web share and application sharing is that when I do a web share, I'm basically pushing out a website that then the users individually can browse. They have the control at that point, and as the presenter, I've just kind of given them control, and it's an independent web page. So the web sharing is that ability to push out websites and other web-based content to the users. You can conduct polls using Wimba Classroom, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put up a polling question right now just to get a sense of how this works. So as you're going through a lecture, you can get a sense of the student's familiarity with content, or as a little quiz partway through. And so the polling question that I'm going to put up here is, have you ever used Wimba Classroom before? And so what I'd like you to do is go ahead and respond to that question, and simply respond by clicking yes or no and then the submit button. We'll then register your response to the question, and then as the instructor, I can preview those responses, and then I'm going to go ahead and publish those out so then you can actually see those responses. One of the neat features of Wimba Classroom is that if you use polling questions such as these, when students are viewing the archive of the session, the quiz questions like this polling question, they actually can participate live as if they were live, even though it's in the archived session. Obviously, in the video archive, viewing on an iPod or such, students don't have those same capabilities, but definitely in a viewing archive online, which we'll have available later this afternoon, that poll is available. So polling either before the session or throughout to get some responses from the students is really a great feature and great approach that many faculty do use when they're using the technology. You can have what are called breakout rooms. So analogous to the idea in the face-to-face classroom where maybe you give a presentation and then you want to break students into small groups and let them discuss maybe a question or a concept. You give them a certain amount of time to do that in small groups and then come back together. You can do that same type of thing here in a Wimba Classroom by creating what are called breakout rooms. So you can either randomly or assign students to discussion, what are called breakout rooms or small discussion groups, where they kind of leave the main room, they can discuss, and then you as the instructor can bring them back together. And then finally, the ability to archive is very powerful. Not only online archives, but everything that's happening on the video screen can be archived. Those viewing the podcast version of this archive are able to see everything that's happening in the e-board space, the main square window that you see. They see that access. And if you view the online archive, you also see the text chat that's taking place. So a few more features. Integration. The e-board is integrated with the Symposium. on our campus here, we've in many of our smart classrooms, the Symposium interactive pen display, and it's a monitor basically with a stylus that you can use to basically annotate on the monitor using the stylus, and those annotations appear over the top of any application that may be open. And it's a way many faculty are using to, rather than writing notes on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, they're using that basically virtual whiteboard to project their annotations. And if you're using that Symposium technology with Wimba Classroom, you can actually draw right on the monitor, and those annotations will appear on the whiteboard. The presenter can share video using a webcam, is what I'm doing here today. Again, that's totally optional, but it is a feature that is available for those who want to do that. Classroom integration with Blackboard, which I've already mentioned, but this was really a key. And when NIU made the choice to go with Wimba Classroom for a synchronous collaboration tool, it explored a variety of tools. We had faculty pilot and give feedback on what was most important. And one of the reasons that Blackboard was chosen was its seamless integration with Blackboard. And you're going to see that in just a bit. We'll talk about how that works and walk you through that process. But it really, that integration is really key. You don't have to know a separate password or login to be able to access that information. The ability to import new content on the fly to share with students is really powerful. So not only can you pre-build content or presentations with questions and slides like I've done here today, but on the fly I could import a PowerPoint presentation, and even if I hadn't pre-built it, I could just have this file on my computer. While we're in the session, I could import this for my students to have access to and to share with my students. So as we think about collaborative learning and ways in which technology, synchronous technology like Wimba Classroom could be used in education, we think about some of the ways in which it can help to foster collaboration, where the ability to easily create and add voice recordings to live or archived audio-based instructional content. So I can use Wimba Classroom to add voice to perhaps static presentation slides. And then students can view that live. We could have a live session like we have here today, or for those viewing the archive, that archive is available. Different ways in which you may look to provide opportunities for live collaboration with and between learners. So maybe it's a group project, or maybe there are opportunities where you want students to collaborate with one another. Maybe they are not able to meet physically, but they could meet virtually using this technology. Some are starting to use Wimba Classroom as an authoring tool to be able to create online learning objects, short presentations, using the archive capabilities to be able to create a presentation that students would watch, and then they're able to view that archive later on. And it does provide opportunities for social networking, the development of learning communities. Wimba Classroom works not only in actual courses, but also in Blackboard communities that we have here at NIU. So if a student organization is using a Blackboard community to share documents or perhaps discussion board features, they can also have a Wimba Classroom and have meetings, or can use this type of technology to bring in guest presenters, lots of ways in which it could in collaborative learning spaces. So as far as educational applications and how is this, some ideas, anytime you're looking to foster on-demand informal communication between students or the student and the instructor, this kind of technology is ideal. It's very easy to use. I already alluded to this, but you could invite guest experts to present real-time online lectures. So perhaps a colleague at another institution, you'd like to bring them in to give a guest presentation, but you don't have the finances to fly them here, the time that it takes to travel. All of that could be accomplished using Wimba Classroom technology, where that guest expert could speak to your class remotely, and it could be archived so that you have access to that, and students could view that even after that presentation. Using another idea, and some faculty are doing this, using the technology to offer revision sessions for students, or maybe those that need extra help, providing, you provide some additional assistance to students. Instead of them having to necessarily come to your office for that assistance, they could attend an online session, and you could archive that so that those that perhaps couldn't attend could view that after the fact. A few other ideas here, a peer-to-peer coffee break or study sessions for students. You can provide a Wimba Classroom that students could choose to use to meet together to form their own study groups or other types of collaborative environments where you don't have to be there to make that happen, but you can just provide a space, a virtual space for students to do that. It's a very easy to configure type of use of the technology. Some faculty are offering online office hours with voice and video. So actually every week, perhaps, you offer an hour where you're going to be online in your Wimba online office, and students can join you and ask questions at that time. It is possible, we may not get into it today, but it's very possible to create a single Wimba Classroom that you can use as an online office for all of your class sessions. So maybe there's 1 hour a week that you want to be available to all of your students online, and if you want to share that room rather than having to log into different rooms and making it very simple for you as well as your students, you can create a single Wimba room and then add the links to it in all of your classes, and then students can ask from the various, whatever Blackboard course they happen to be enrolled in. And just many ideas for allowing online conversations where it's helpful for students to practice communication skills when we think about public speaking, negotiation skills in business, patient diagnosis in healthcare, and many other types of applications, foreign languages, communications, where students need practice using verbal and auditory types of communication skills. This is a great technology to use to give them an opportunity to practice and hone those skills. So I want to pause here for just a moment before we head into Blackboard. See what ideas you may have for using Wimba Classroom. Maybe there's something, an idea that you've been thinking of, or something else that comes to mind that I haven't mentioned. I'd love to hear any ideas that any of you have about how you might use Wimba Classroom. So if you have an idea, if you can feel free to in the text chat area. I'm going to release the talk button, so if you do have a microphone connected, you can go ahead and click and hold the talk button and share your idea that way. Fantastic. So Stephanie mentioned just the ability for guest speakers and the fact that it's greener. It's a greener type of technology, certainly. You think about the carbon emissions that are saved when individuals don't have to travel to campus necessarily to participate in an online session, but they could log in from their dorm room or home or wherever they have an internet connection. Todd, you mentioned using to teach UNIV 101 courses and introducing students to the technology. This would be a fantastic technology to introduce the students to right away in their first semester here on the campus, because they have access to it and they're able to make use of it as they proceed through the program. We're seeing more and more faculty using the Wimba Classroom technology and encouraging faculty to make use of it, are using it at different levels, but certainly it's great to introduce the students to that. I think I think you make a great point, Todd, about faculty moving more of their face-to-face courses to the online environment, and we're seeing especially interest in the blended formats. Stephanie is one of my colleagues that we've worked with on offering what we call a blended learning experience or workshop, an all-day session where we talked about just this past March the process of designing a course and redesigning it for blended learning. And we're seeing more and more faculty interested in that, certainly as you mentioned, Todd. Yeah, it's important, Stephanie. Businesses are using the virtual tools, and I think preparing the students, as you mentioned, for these 21st century skills that they need when they leave the institution. A lot of corporations are using this type of technology for meetings, for training, and instead of flying individuals across the country, they're using tools like this for those types of interactions. So to give students that real-world experience, I think, is really important. So these are great ideas, and certainly those of you viewing the archive, I'm sure you have some ideas as well. So with that, let's talk a little bit about how do you get started in Blackboard. What we're going to do here is I want to very quickly show you in Blackboard how you create a Wimba Classroom to use it as an online office, and then add a link in the course menu to the Wimba Classroom. And then from there, I'm happy to answer additional questions and kind of walk through the process a bit more if there are other questions that, in particular, Todd, if you have other questions. I know Stephanie has had an opportunity, and she's rather familiar with the integration in Blackboard. So try to answer the questions that you have, Todd. So if you have questions as we go along, certainly feel free to type those in the text chat area, and I'll try to monitor that. So we're going to go into application sharing, which is one of the features. And I have on my desktop here, I have another browser window open that I'm going to go ahead and share. It'll take me just a moment to go ahead and enable this. And you should be seeing now, momentarily, you should be seeing on your screen my window. And if you do see that, if you could just click on the little check mark icon to confirm that you see my window, very good. And so what I've done is actually I'm sharing right now my entire window. So you're seeing everything on the window, and I can, for example, I could resize the window. So if I make it narrower, you see those changes happening in your window. And if you haven't already done so, try to maximize your window by clicking the looks like the square in the upper right-hand corner so that you're able to see, hopefully, my entire screen. So I have a Blackboard course open. This is one of our Blackboard training courses. And one of the very first things I want to show you is just where do you find Wimba Classroom. As I said, it's integrated in Blackboard. So every Blackboard course, every Blackboard community has access to use the Wimba Classroom tool. And it's located, if you click on communications within your Blackboard course or community, you'll see two Wimba tools. One is Wimba Classroom, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. There's a second Wimba tool that we haven't talked about today, but certainly is something we'll be talking about more in the future, and that is Wimba Pronto. And Wimba Pronto is an instant messaging tool that, again, has many of the same features of Wimba Classroom. One of the chief features is that it is a instant messaging type client that automatically populates with the names of the users in your course. So as an instructor, if you use Wimba Pronto as a way to provide an instant messaging type of platform for students, they can download. There's a software they download and install on their computer. It authenticates through Blackboard. And then once you log in, it shows you your classes, and it shows you who from that class is online at that time. So if students want to informally connect, it's a great technology and tool that they can use. But what we're going to talk about here today is Wimba Classroom. And often this is what the tool that faculty will use to create an online office. So what we're going to do today is basically create an online office space, basically, that could be used for conducting online office hours. So we're going to use the use case of where a faculty member may want to create an online office where once a week they can be in that room and make it available to students. So to do that, we're going to create what's called a room. So again, we clicked on Communication, and we clicked on Wimba Classroom. And here you see a button that allows us to create a room. That's the first step. So we're going to click Create Room. And at this point, we need to give the room a title. You'll notice there's an asterisk there. And so we'll say this is going to be our online office. and this is our, we'll say it's our online meeting room for online office hours. Now, as we scroll down, by default, you have some options here, and I'm just going to quickly mention all the available options. Generally, you can ignore most of these, but I at least want to highlight what they are so that you're aware. By default, presentation tools are only available to instructors. What this means is that this room is going to be set up so as the instructor or the presenter, you will have all of the presentation tools. So you can show slides, you can use the e-board, but that functionality will be disabled from students. If you were setting up the room to be a group room, or where a place for students to be able to have the ability to use those presentation tools, you would simply select that option, and that type of room would be created. And then in addition, there are some settings here, and each of these settings, there's a little disclosure triangle that if you click on, expands and allows you to customize the settings. So first of all, media settings. By default, students will be able to speak. They'll be able to show their video and as well as use the phone. So if they're having issues with their speakers, they could call in and hear the audio. You can choose, however, to manually disable any or all of these. It's up to you by default. If you choose to not allow students to speak by default, but then you want to give them the ability once they're in the room, maybe they raise their hand and you want to give them the ability to then speak, you can easily do that. But these are just the default settings of what happens with students, what they see when they first log in. Video bandwidth by default will be a medium level, but if you know that you're going to have students on a very slow connection, or perhaps you know all your students have a very high speed connection, you could choose to change default video bandwidth to fast. But I recommend just keeping it at the medium level. Next are room features. Do you want students to be able to use what are called status indicators? So things like indicating whether you're away, whether you want to move up or down as far as or for them to smile. There are some emoticons, some things that they can do, and you can choose whether or not you want them to be able to do that, as well as when they make those emoticons, make those selections, does that appear in the chat? So you can customize that. The breakout rooms and use of students to use the e-board, again, you have options of whether those features are available. Chat settings, are they able to use the text chat? Also, do you allow private chat? So you can disable the ability for students to chat privately with each other during the session. And some faculty prefer to do that because they think what students don't realize is if they do a private chat within, as the presenter, you see that. And so you may want to just disable private chatting so that all chat is public. Again, that's kind of a preference, but those features are available. Finally, do you want to designate a maximum user access, maximum numbers of users? Typically, you wouldn't do this in a class, but if you were using the room as a standalone room, you might only want so many people to be able to log in at any given time. You can limit the number of users, but the default is unlimited, as well as enabling guest access. And this is what you can do if you want to set up the room in such a way that a guest presenter could present and could access the room without necessarily having a Blackboard login. So we may come back and create a second room, and I'll show you how that looks different. But for now, we're just going to leave all the settings as default. So really, I haven't changed any of these settings. I'll just go back and collapse all of these here. And so as you can see, all I did was put in a title and a description. I'm going to leave everything else as the default, and I'm just going to click the Submit button. Now, a room has just been created, and if I click OK, here I can see the room. There's the title, and if I click on the name of the room, I can see some more information about the room, a link to the setup wizard. I can go ahead and start adding content, and at this point, configuring. But this is just an online office. It's not going to be used for presentations at all, so I really don't have to worry about any of those settings. So basically now what we've done is if we click on Communications in Wimba Classroom, here we see this new, once it loads here, we'll see the new, here's our online office, and clicking on it, here's what we see as far as the kind of the gate or entry point into the course. And to enter the room, we'd simply click Enter Room, either us or our students, and the room window would open, and we'd have our Wimba room just like we have here today. However, it's a bit cumbersome for students to have to click Communications, Wimba Classroom, and then know to click to get in the office and to enter the room. And so what I like to do in the courses that I set up as I teach with Blackboard is I like to be really selective as to what I put in this menu on the left. And if there's something that I'm going to be using regularly, something that is going to be an important element of the course, I will want to link to that right in the menu to make it very easy for students to get to that location in the course. And there are other things I don't use that I actually remove or hide. And so one of the things I would want to do is make it very easy for them to get to my online office. And so to do that, I want to put a link in the menu here on the left. Now keep in mind that Wimba Classroom, it is a standalone service. So right now, even though this window that we're looking at, even though it's inside of our Blackboard course, this is actually being pulled in from an external server. It's actually located, our Wimba Classroom server is located in New York. But we're seeing it here inside of our NIU Blackboard class. And it's actually just a link. So if we go back to Communications and Wimba Classroom, when you see the link, the name of our office, and when you mouse over it, you'll note down here in the status bar, there'll be a really long address that's going to appear. And this is actually a physical URL, a long address to our room. And anyone that's logged into Blackboard, once they're logged in, if they were to click on that link or have that link, they could get into the room. Blackboard does control access permissions, so that anybody that has that link currently can just get into the room. They have to be a user in the course and be logged into Blackboard in order to get access to the room. But that's to add the link in our menu, we simply need that long address. And the way that you get that is you simply mouse over the name of your office and then right-click. And there's, depending on the browser that you're using, I'm using Firefox, and the option in Firefox is to copy link location. Now in Internet Explorer, I think it's copy shortcut, and depending on the browser that you're using, it may differ based on version. But I'm going to select this option to copy the link location. It's not going to copy Online Office, but it's actually just copied that address that you see down in the status bar. So from there, now what I'm going to do is go to the control panel, and in the control panel there's an option called Manage Course Menu. And clicking on that, here you can see all of the current menu items that I have in my Blackboard course. And what I want to do is add what's called an external link. Our Wimba Classroom is technically outside of our Blackboard course, and so that's why we're adding an external link. So we click on that, and I'm going to call this my online office. You could call it virtual office. It could be your instructor office. And so we'll give it that name. And then in the URL space, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to paste that really long address. Here you can see it's right here. It's very long, and thankfully, I don't have to remember it. I can just paste it in there. You can ignore these other options. We don't want to change any of these. We don't want it to open in a new window. We don't want to allow these other types of access, but we do want students to be able to click on this link. So then we click the Submit button. Okay. Now at the bottom we see here's our online office, and it says it's an external link to, and there's our room address. Now at this point I could choose to move this around. So if I want my online office maybe up here just above the discussion board, right underneath Communications, I'll make it number 7 in the list by selecting number 7 in my drop-down, and now you can see Online Office shows up as number 7. And if I go out and if I click on the title of my course in the breadcrumb navigation up here, to go back out to the front page, now you see in my menu, I have a link to Online Office. And when I click it, again, it takes me directly to the room, and now I can enter the Wimba room directly from here. So again, the same way students could go Communication, Wimba Classroom, Online Office would get them there. Or in one click, they click Online Office, and it takes them directly there. Any questions at this point? Before I pause, and we'll create one more type of room. We'll create a lecture hall, online lecture hall type room, and we'll put the link there as well. But just want to pause. Okay, Todd, no questions? Great. So let's go ahead and we'll create a second room and just show you that process, how easy it is. Again, going back to Communications and Wimba Classroom, we're going to create a second room. And let's say that the purpose of this room is going to be where we're going to give our online lectures. Know of a physics faculty member who he's using Wimba Classroom to actually replace some of his seat time. So he meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday lectures. His Wednesday lecture he's conducting online. So he's still meeting with the students in the classroom Monday and Friday, but that Wednesday lecture is an online lecture that they can view through Wimba Classroom. So we'll call this our online lecture hall. And we'll just say, for the sake of an example, join us here each week for online lecture from 9 to 9:50 a.m., for example. And again, we're going to allow this to be a room that's only open to the presentation tool is only for the instructors. And we're going to leave all the settings as default, the way we've set them up here. Click Submit and OK. And here's our online lecture hall. And I'm going to, again, I want to put a link to that in my menu. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to copy the link location for our online lecture hall. I'm going to go to the control panel and manage course menu. And we'll add our external link. We'll call it our lecture hall in that long URL. And then click the Submit button. Here's our online lecture hall. And we'll put it up here. We'll say it's number 4. All right, so now we have a second Wimba room. I see I misspelled it, so we can go back. I spelled it properly in the title, but I misspelled the link in my menu. I could go back to the control panel and to manage course menu, and now I'm going to just fix that. And one of the great things about using Blackboard is obviously you can always make changes. You can always fix, if you make an error, you can always fix that error. So we have our online lecture hall here, and this is where you would go in and you'd maybe want to preload some content. We're using this, and you were going to give a presentation like I'm giving right now, where you have some PowerPoint slides. You would go in and you have this option here to add and manage content. So once you're in the room as the instructor, you can add what's called Blackboard content, meaning if the file is already sitting somewhere in this Blackboard course, I could add the file from there. Or what I'm going to do right here is add into the room content. So when you click on that, you see this new window that opens, and I'm not sure if you're seeing this. It looks like you are. This new window that opens will allow you to start adding content. And you can put the content either in what's called a default content folder, or you can make a folder. So I have a folder here, and we'll say this is going to be Lecture 1. And then I can put anything associated with that lecture inside of this folder. So by clicking on the name of that folder, I can now add lots of different kinds of content. I'm going to add the PowerPoint for today's session. I'm just going to browse on my computer to locate it. And then after I've located it and it appears here, I'm going to click the Add button. And it's going to display Wimba Classroom is going to, it'll upload this file, and it will put it inside of my folder for this particular course, or this room that we have. So my folder will be here. I'll have my PowerPoint slides once they are finished uploading. They'll be, and here they are available now. And you can see the title of the slides become that I'll see in my menu as I present. I can also continue adding content, so I could add other PowerPoints, kind of have one long list. I could also go in and add some URLs at this point. So I could add a link to a website. I could also add a polling question here, which we don't have time to do today, but we certainly can talk more about that in the future, and I encourage you to give it a try. The type of question that you answered earlier was a multiple choice question that I simply added into my content area of my room. So after you're all done and you've added your content, I can close out that window. And if I go back to the Add and Manage Content, here's my Lecture 1 folder. Now that you can see there are 19 slides, and I could go in and I could continue adding content, modifying content, and so forth. So once my room is configured, I could go ahead then and I'm ready to enter my room. Let's say, though, that I want to have a guest presenter. I have a colleague at another institution that's going to join us. What I need to do for this online lecture hall is to edit the settings of the room and turn on what's called guest access. So we're going to go and we're going to click Edit Settings for the room. And you'll see as we scroll down, there are these various settings here. And under Access Settings, we're going to enable guest access. So we just simply check that box, click Submit, and click OK. And now because I'm logged in currently as the instructor, when I look at the room, I see this access link. And simply this link now, anyone that has this link can access the room without having to log into Blackboard. They simply have to type in their name, and they have access right away to the Wimba room that we're using. The students don't see this link, so that they can't just go and invite anybody into this room. That certainly could be a security issue. So as the instructor, you're kind of the gatekeeper now of this guest link. And so I could email this link to my colleague, and then they could log into the room. Once someone is in a Wimba room, you can actually give them presenter access very easily so that they have the ability to advance the slides themselves. So it's very powerful. And then you can always undo this by going back into Edit the Settings, and under Access Settings, if you uncheck this Enable Guest Access option and click Submit, you've revoked that access, and now, as you can see, that guest link is gone. So really, as the instructor, you have full control over how you want the room to work. You have the dial-in number and PIN for your students. On a slide, you can give them this phone number and this PIN number, and if they have difficulty with their speakers or they can't get their audio working, they can actually dial in and hear the presentation. So in a nutshell, that's really what there is, all there is to creating a room initially and putting the links in the menu within Blackboard. My recommendation would be, if you're going to use Wimba Classroom for several different purposes, have a different room for each purpose. So in this example here, we have an online lecture hall for kind of dissemination of content, more formal type lectures and presentations, and then a separate space for the online office. You can, with any room, you can choose to open and close the room. Currently, you see that the online office is open. Maybe, and it's a good recommendation to not allow students in there unless you're there. So you can close the room. So by clicking the Close the Room button, now you see the room office is closed, and now Online Office is closed. So if students were to now, in our Blackboard course, click Online Office, they would get this window, but there would be no Enter Room button. They would see that the Online Office is closed. So I like to tell my students, okay, I'll be in the Online Office 15 minutes before it starts, or you can just tell them the room is closed until I'm in the room. And then when you're ready to go in, you simply have to make sure to open this room. That turns it on, and then you can enter the room. So that's just a little tip, a good idea to kind of monitor the room. And if you choose to archive the session, especially for your online lecture sessions, to archive that, you would start the archive, and when you finish, that archive will show up in the list. So as time goes on, students go to that room, that lecture area, or that online office, and there they would see all of the archives if you choose to archive. So any other questions in particular that you might have about Wimba Classroom at this point? All right, Stephanie says no questions. I see her red X. I'll give Todd a minute if he wants to chime in if he has any further questions. Otherwise, we'll look to wrap things up here a bit before the end of our time. Great. So what we'll do is there a tutorial to follow? Yes. In fact, Todd, we do have some resources, and I'm going to go ahead and end sharing and point those out right now. So as far as the steps, what's involved, one of the great things is that we do have, you've got a couple of options here. You do have the doubt. So I'm going to put a hand up out here in just a moment, waiting for the our session here to end, our app sharing. It says our sharing is ending. Since it looks like we're still app sharing, I'll go ahead and just put up there is a handout. Now I'll give you a glimpse of what it looks like here. And I'm going to provide the link to this in the email after we finish recording today. So you'll have the direct link to this. Don't feel like write this down, Todd. But here's a resource page that we maintain that has a 5-minute quick intro to Wimba Classroom and does have a lot of great quick start guides. These are all little PDFs that you can print out if you'd like to have kind of a step-by-step, getting ready, presenter guide, and so forth. There are also some nice little tutorials on getting started. How do you create a Wimba class Blackboard? Just like what we walked through today, the steps, they're outlined here in some of these little short videos that are available. Also, we do have, this session today is going to be archived. So you'll be able to access that at any point in time. And again, I'll provide the link. You can find the archive, actually go to our faculty development website, niu.edu/facdev. And if you go to programs and then program archives, you'll see a listing of all of our online programs that we've archived. And our session today will be April 23rd, 2010 on promoting online collaboration using Wimba Classroom. You'll see that appear here later this afternoon. Archive, we keep all of our archives here. So by clicking the title, you'll be able to watch this archive live again if you'd like. To just kind of refresher, there's also links to the podcast. You can do it in iTunes, and I'll have a link to that handout as well. Fantastic, Todd. I'm glad to hear it's been helpful, and I hope for those that view the archive, you find this helpful as well. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to get back in touch with us. We're still app sharing at the moment, but I will go ahead and I'll send out my contact information and email after the session is over today. I'll also go ahead and let me put it up as we wrap up. I'll bring up my page here and my contact information. So you've got my phone number, email. Feel free to get in touch if you have questions. Certainly, Todd, as you see other faculty that are interested in using Wimba Classroom, we'd be happy to arrange a special online session like this, or even we do offer several face-to-face sessions throughout each semester. But if you find colleagues that would be interested in kind of a specialized session, certainly let us know, and we'd be happy to arrange that. So thank you, everybody, for attending today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the archive and wish you all the best as you get started using Wimba Classroom in Blackboard.